Welcome to the Cranky Cameraman. This is my second week stuck at home, not working, much the same as the rest of the world. And so today I thought it'd be interesting to run through the equipment I sold last year and why. I'm also using this downtime as an opportunity to test and get more comfortable with new equipment. So for today, I'm working in available light in the shade. I got a nice white fence to my left that's creating a bounce, although that's dropping rapidly. So by the end of this video, I imagine that fence will most likely be completely in the shade. Using the FX9, and this is my first attempt with the kit lens, which arrived 2 weeks ago. It's the first time I put it on the camera, the 28 to 135, and I've got the aperture set at an f4. We're at ISO 1250. I'm running the ND, variable ND in auto mode, but the iris manual at a 4. And our zoom position is, I'll have to go up to the camera and see. It says Z46 on the scale. And then I'm just shooting in that Cinetone baked in color profile, XAVC, 35 megabits, 2398 at 1080, because I don't want big files for post. And also I'm in Super 35 4K windowed sensor mode. And then for audio, I've got the Rode Wireless Go. I'm not using an external lavalier. I'm trying out the mic on the pack, and I got the big furry windscreen. So moving on to equipment I sold last year, 2019, really 5 big items. And out of the 5, I agonized out of all of them because they're still viable. I utilize them occasionally. They generate revenue, but I have to balance the cost to carry, maintain, store, insure, relative to the amount of time and revenue it generates. So each of these items, for various reasons, got to the point where it's like 50-50. I could sell it and move on, or hang on to it a little bit longer. So the first one was an easy decision for me. I bought this in 2018, near the fourth quarter, for a traveling commercial where we flew around the United States, the Ready Rig. We shot that job on my Amira with a Movi Pro, which is all equipment I own, and we shot on Rokinon prime lenses with an EF mount, and that was just majorly pushing the limits of what that gimbal can handle, putting the Amira on there. And the biggest lens we could run was a Rokinon, and it wasn't that we were at the weight limit of the motors, it was more that I could not offset the rear of the camera anymore. It was crashing into the backside of the gimbal, so a heavier lens wouldn't have been possible. I'll get into the Movi in a moment. So I bought this Ready Rig vest to hold that massive rig as we shot in these different manufacturing facilities around the US. So in the end, it wasn't for me. I don't like the restriction of being in that vest. I've got some hip arthritis issues from life, and the way that transfers the weight of the camera down into like side loading my hips was just not comfortable for me. And then I found with the Movi, you really could only do moves where you're walking forward or back. If you try to walk sideways, it upsets the vertical height of the lens, which is something you can't stabilize. And then I know there's pan bars and more accessories you can do to be able to work around the limitations of the vest, but kind of had to face reality that do I want to be a career gimbal operator, or do I want to focus on my true passion? And that traveling job a week on the road really made me determine that the vest wasn't for me. So I put that up for sale, and I think I lost about $500 or $600 on it. So next up, trying to stay in pace or slightly ahead of what my customers are asking for. I've had the Movi Pro for a few years, and I thought I'd be flying big cameras on that gimbal. And how it's played out is if I'm operating the gimbal and providing it, it's generally a smaller production and smaller, lighter cameras. So I was primarily shooting the Movi Pro on the road with a 5D, and it's just overkill. Wonderful rig, and I put a lot of money into, I bought the TB50 battery brackets for it from the company in Australia, and I also got the tilt cage offsets to fly longer, heavier cameras. Built a road case with some advice from a fellow camera person, Josh Park. Thank you, Josh. On a travel project last year, I discovered that it was time for me to sell the Movi and move on and simplify. We had a travel job in Miami, and I flew out with 2 Amiras, and then the production company had their A7 on a Ronin S, and I had my Movi, and they were running circles around me with the A7 and the little lightweight Ronin with self-contained single user follow focus. Got home from that trip and immediately put the Ronin, or sorry, the Movi up for sale. Priced it aggressively. I just wanted to get it out and move on, and that's when I replaced that, which you've seen in previous videos, with a Blackmagic 6K pocket cam Ronin S with the Nucleus N focus, and it matches my Amira's really, really well, and it's the same file format. Next up, I purchased this item many, many years ago. I bought it new, and it was when I was working as a director and a DP, but I didn't own any equipment. And what I'd frequently run into is with the rental gear, it was always a lousy tripod, or just old or too small. Like, would you look at the technical specs, it would be technically appropriate for the weight and size of camera, but you know, like right on the edge. And it's like when you're trying to do longer lens precision moves, you're working from a dolly, you're back panning, countering the direction the camera's traveling, you need a larger head that's got variable drag, variable counterbalance, and where you can really finesse things. So I, with a partner, bought a brand new 2060, and I knew when I bought it at the time, it's such a big ticket item that with babies and standards, that I was not going to be able to recoup my investment quickly. I actually think it took 5 or 6 years between the rev share through the co-ownership, and then just like you can't really charge a whole lot for a fluid head kit. You know, it was like between $50 and $125 a day, but I didn't buy that as a moneymaker. I purchased it to improve my craft and deliver. It was a particularly high maintenance item. About every 2 years, I'd have to have it sent in and torn down and serviced. Actually, I had it serviced just before I sold it, and it was $1,700. And the reason I didn't go with the bigger rental house standard, the 2575, was that from my limited experience ACing on 35 millimeter projects, a set of Ronford Baker aluminum tripods and the 2575 head is just a little bit too much weight for me to lift. It tweaks my back, and that 2060 was like in the sweet spot, you know, big oversized head, but still something I could lift fully assembled all day long. The reason I put that up for sale is it went from a tool I'd use once a week, 4 times a month, to sitting in the shop for months at a time. And then my last few travel jobs, it would come back, and I think it just got dropped too many times, and it would have oil leaks, and then I have to send it in, have a seal serviced, and it was just getting too expensive. And the dynamic of the work I'm doing had started to shift. I went from doing these sort of mid-sized productions where there's always a camera assistant and a DIT, plus myself operating, to doing a lot more of these multi-role smaller projects where I'm the one-person camera team. And I haven't replaced that with anything. I've got 2 existing Sockler tripods. I've got a 15SB, which is my daily driver, and then a 20P that I'll use for second cam, or when I'm up on my 30 to 300, and or if I'm running on like a big Fisher dolly, I'll put the 20P up. So next up, and this is a long, winding evolution. It wasn't like a one-time decision, but for the last couple years, I was the 100% owner of a 2 to 3 ton grip truck, 16-foot box truck, a Zuzu NPR, bulletproof little truck. It was weighted and dated so that it was exempt from all of the California Air Resource Board retrofit requirements. It was basically in a position where you could run it unlimited miles in California and indefinitely, no exit date. So like ideal diesel little truck, got about 11 miles per gallon, minimal maintenance on it. It's just so simple, purely mechanical. Service per year would be brakes, go through a couple of tires, and oil and filter changes. That was kind of the extent of the maintenance, but that was something I had to park off site, so I was paying for gated parking, commercial auto insurance, and then you have to run a DOT driving log, and you got to go through weigh stations, and it's just a lot of stress managing that truck. I acquired that package because at the time I was in this window of doing a lot of studio and location projects that were, again, mid-size, like 2 to 3 electrics, 2 to 3 grips, and myself and camera department plus 1 or 2. In 2019, the demand for that truck slowed down. Just again, the scope of work I was doing was shifting, and the advent of LED lighting technology becoming rapidly affordable, and the ability to battery power those panels. So now we could use smaller, lighter weight stands. We don't need big sandbags, which means you don't need the big steel carts to move the heavy stands and the heavy sandbags. Congestion in the city traffic getting worse, parking being difficult at most locations for a cube truck. It's time to put the truck up for sale, and I thought that was going to be a 6-month or longer process. I listed it 2 ways, just the truck and then the truck with all of the gear, and I did all of the gear at about 40 cents on the dollar. And the truck, I just lowballed it because I wanted it out, and my phone blew up. I put the truck up on Truck Trader and Craigslist, and day one got phone calls and showings, and ended up going to a small business that moves office furniture. They were super stoked to have the 7-foot cantilever liftgate. I guess they'd been rolling file cabinets and heavy desks up a moving ramp into a cube truck. And then a studio up in LA called me, and they bought, say, 90% of the package, all of the carts, all of the big heavy stands, most of the grip kit and sand as a package, and asking price, which again, it was about 40 cents off of new street price. All right, so the sun has not advanced as much as I thought it would. I think it's been about 20 minutes, and it's only crept up about 1/3 from where I started. But looking at the exposure here on my monitor, I look about the same. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned earlier, I've got the autofocus or auto exposure, auto ND bracketed down half a stop, because just looking at zebras and the monitor, it was looking a little over to me in full auto mode. Maybe it's because the camera is reaching into the greens center frame, which are down from my skin tones, and that's why center weighting the auto exposure and bumping it up. I don't know, but I'm curious to see how this looks. I'm not going to process this at all in post. I get the white balance at 6,000 Kelvin. I'm not sure where the tint is set. And again, we're Cinetone auto exposure via auto ND, fixed aperture. And that is all for today. Thank you for watching. You can learn more about me and our services on my website, which is wintersmediagroup.com.